Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a distribution, a desktop environment application. We also chat about any variety of topics that is Linux tech or open source related, because it's on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I got a fantastic panel of folks. I've got Rick Koppel, Swift, Adam Grubbs, Eric Aris, Colin, Sanal, Dan Kelly, Sean, Ulfnic, and Ben's iPhone. So I guess this is our first cyber guest, so this is fun. So welcome all. I hope you are doing fantastic on this beautiful September day. At least it is here where I am.
I'm good. How are you today, Nate?
Aside from a backache, great.
Well, you're a hardworking man, so I'm sure you've been putting your back to good use. Right?
Yeah. It'll be fine tomorrow, maybe, or worse. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So be sure to do the straw poll about your experience with Debian. I like the more votes we get, the better. I'm sure it's going to be nothing but roses and puppy dogs, and maybe kitty cats that don't claw you. So on the docket for today, we were going to talk about that straw poll, do a little dig into Debian 12, the bookworm. Then what's on the docket for next week? Do some housekeeping. Our last call. But first, what are we doing in Linux and tech? I have a bit of a, we'll call it an IT manager war story. So typically speaking, on Fridays, I would be, I work remotely. I don't go in the office, and I do like project work, and get some things done that I can just do, remotely, either compiling things, doing, whatever. But there was a managers meeting, so the entire, so both sites were having like this, virtual meeting, and now keep in mind, I am very proud of the work I've done at the company as far as like setting up these conference rooms so they are zero issue, plug and play, no problems. Well, so the conference room for which I'm very proud of that I set up, the mic didn't work. Anything that we did, even routing in, nothing worked. And ultimately it said that the mic couldn't be found. And little did I know, like at that same time, they tried using the conference room. I just finished doing all the hardware installation and had worked fine the whole week. They couldn't get that one working either. And then also the president of the company, he was having nothing but problems as well. And so in the meeting, he's very angry that there's no IT on-prem to fix the issue, and pushed the meeting off and said some words that were less than enthusiastic. And I live about an hour and a half away from the plant. So I immediately because this is mine. Like these are my conference rooms. I'm very proud of the work I did. They're nothing but perfect. They can't be anything less than or near perfect anyway. Like they have to work the way I intend. Otherwise, I'm not content with them. So I drove in to the plant, and I went to investigate the problem. And sure enough, the issue was actually a physical issue. So the computer somehow got pulled away, like it was mounted on a wall, pulled away because something pulled the cables down, which basically snapped the USB-C connector, the adapter, off of, or like, basically broke it. Yeah, it was a pretty serious like break. And so I went out to go fix it. I'm like, wow, this is kind of a rat's nest. And so I ended up basically taking the entire thing apart back there, and I pulled everything down, rerouted the cables. I cinched the computer against the wall so tight that either the straps are going to break or the case is going to crush. Those are the two options. And so I got that up there. I pulled everything else down, rerouted things better than they were, and I spent a few hours doing it. And then once I had that done, I went into the new conference room that I just set up. It was actually working fine. The problem was don't worry about the problem on that one. It was a user error. Let's just put it like that. And
Okay.
and then I went to go talk to the president of the company who was there, and I says, "Hey, I fixed it." And I showed him what they actually broke on it, but I took pictures so I could show him that I wasn't, a liar. And he's like, this thing is giving me problems too. I said, you know what? Let's test this. I will use the brand new conference room, and I will call you from there. And so I called him, proved that basically everything's working, made sure his stuff was working, and he was very happy. But he said, like, even though he was very angry that morning, and so he said to me, he says, you didn't have to come in here and do this. And I said, well, I wouldn't actually be able to sleep tonight knowing that my stuff was broken. So I had to fix it. It had to be right, because what if someone else has to use it? And so he's very appreciative. But it was basically a kind of, there's something that I'm very proud of that I don't have to worry about failing. Yeah. Had a basically a mechanical failure.
Well, I know that you had mentioned that you had an actual budget to do this, and that they were going to spend like tens of thousands of dollars, and that you actually were able to save them quite a lot of money. Had you set up that unit on the wall initially, or was that someone else's work?
So that was already there, and I'm not sure. Like, I think it looked like it was just kind of tied up. It's really
you just
ultimately
hadn't realized what it was like.
Right. Ultimately, it's my fault. I probably should have inspected everything.
Well,
completely.
I mean,
and
I'm not. That wasn't the reason I was asking. Was I didn't know, like, if it was mounted in such a way. Like, I wonder, like, who and why would have like pulled so hard that they snapped off the USB-C connector. Like,
so the way the power supply was put on, it basically pulled away from the wall. And so that then pulled it was wire. It was basically the power supply was held onto some other cables, and it pulled on those other cables, which pulled on the computer. Basically, like a cascade failure of issues. And so I don't. The thing is, though, I don't blame anybody, because as the manager, it ultimately, the buck stops here, as it were. And so I failed to do due diligence on the installation piece of it, and but now everything is routed as such where if any one piece were to somehow pull away from the wall, it's not going to pull everything down. So everything is like independently.
You're planning ahead, thinking like, okay, how could someone possibly, let's see, could they like throw something at it? Well, maybe I'll just.
It's all behind the TV against the wall, so it's like there's not a lot of space. But so who knows? Who knows what happened?
You put breakaway points in it.
Essentially, that's kind of what I did. So like, there's no way, like if something were to pull on the power supply, it's not going to damage anything else. Like if somehow somebody like, sticks their hand like whoa, and they're, maybe they're drinking on the job, and they shouldn't be drinking in the plant, obviously. And like their arm slips back there and hooks onto the power supply and somehow rips it from the wall, it's not going to rip anything else down. So,
well, you know what? Problems are going to happen. It's no matter how hard we try things, but I think the important part was, and I agree with you, like, you just can't let it go. You can't be happy with the fact that something failed, like, unless you were either incapable or unable to get there to do the work. Like, if you were able to go and fix it. So I think it was great that he recognized, and even said, like, you didn't have to come and do it, but no, I did. I get that.
So one of my, I'm retired out of the Army now, but one of my Army buddies who works there, I came in and he looked and he pointed at me and he just started laughing. And he's like, it's not my stuff that broke this time. And basically I got ribbings from a bunch of people, all happy that it was me that was the focus of something going wrong and not them. So and I said, look, that's just not supposed to happen.
Well, you know what? What could you have done other than, and you could have never diagnosed that from home. So
nope,
going in and looking at it was the right thing to do. And that's a good one. I love these. Does anyone else have anything that they did this week? Doesn't have to be that exciting. Any Linuxy things?
Yeah, this is all Microsoft stuff too. That's probably
learn how to use bottles for Windows so that I can use Windows programs on my Linux bot.
Yeah.
I've been very successful. I run into dependency issues and get all kinds of error messages on my screen, and that's not very fun.
Yeah. Bottle seems like a pretty interesting. I I used it a little bit, but the UI is really nice on that. Somebody spent a lot of time like putting that together. I don't find a need to run a lot of wine stuff. I guess, and I installed bottles with the intention of trying it, and I had to like come up with some, I forget, I think I installed like Notepad++ or something silly like that because I couldn't think of anything better. But what did you say you did with it? I'm sorry, I missed it, part of it.
Well, I was just trying to use it.
Okay.
Few Windows programs I would like to use without having to create a whole virtual machine and all that extra stuff. So
Gotcha.
that just became problematic.
Yeah, I pay for something from Codeweavers. They have a crossover Linux. I've been using that for many years now, and it has. I think Bottles is basically using that technology that they had. They have the wine bottles essentially in there, and it works great for a lot of applications. But what I really wanted it for was, all right, don't throw me off Linux Saloon, but I bought the latest Microsoft Office.
Oh,
so
gotta walk the plank.
I know. I will walk the.
I pay for it every year.
Well, I don't want the 360 because I use that through work, but I wanted to do some experimentation, see how well it would work in Linux, and it doesn't. But anyway, I got it for like ID me.
Oh, you bought the boxed version.
Oh yeah.
You got a license. Okay.
So it was basically so I can I want to see if I can use some of the functionality as far as like the editing, like the live editing features that it has, because the autosave and integration with OneDrive and everything else, and it doesn't work. But but I'm gonna test it out, just to see how it works. And I got it real cheap, so from like ID Me, I got like a, just because I'm a veteran, they give me that garbage. So basically,
Wares.com.
Yeah, stuff like that.
What office do you normally use?
LibreOffice. But I will say though, LibreOffice has a really weird issue when you have scaling on different displays. That like I have an issue where on anything but my main display, it blows up all the icons, everything's zoomed in really big. And I've tried all kinds of settings. I can't seem to fix that because I have to have my main display at 125%, otherwise I can't read anything. And then I have the other 1080p displays that I have attached at 100%. And so it's the only application that like has this really weird zooming thing that it does.
Is that only on one of the monitors, or does it do it on all three?
On
just the one that's 125, or what?
So it's fine on the 125. It's not fine.
Oh, it's fine on that one.
Yeah, okay. It's not fine on the other ones.
So like it gets the zooming part, but then it can't handle. That's
it's just bonkers.
Yeah, that's.
Is this on X or Wayland?
I have to use Wayland. You can't do that on X. Frankly, I think we just had this discussion, but I think if you're going to have a high DPI display, I don't think anything but Wayland is possible at this point.
I agree.
I was expecting you to tell me I'm wrong. I don't like this.
And that's your reason for moving to Microsoft Office because of those issues?
No,
the main reason.
So I'm the IT manager for where I work, and we use Microsoft Office.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
It's a Microsoft shop. So
of course.
And so there's some things like if I try and make it in LibreOffice, it doesn't translate quite right in Office. Like some things are fine, but some things are just not fine. And and the things that are not fine are glaringly irritating. But I can use the online editor, through Edge, the Office 365, and that works just as well actually.
That's I just can't. What I use anyway. The web ones.
Yeah.
LibreOffice is good, but it depends on your use case. I mean, if you're using certain things that got a lot of stuff in it, it could be a problem. But if you're just a general user, you may not have any issues at all. But I think it's a use case scenario, to be honest.
So I think actually the problem that I have with it has to do with specific weird formatting things, like the basically like the buffer around images or whatnot is just slightly off from LibreOffice to Microsoft Office, so that when I display it on the other one, things are not like on the right page anymore. It's like the content's still there, but like visually it's kind of messed up. So I don't know if it's like header, footer, margins, padding, stuff like that. It could be just a simple little thing like that. That's all that's wrong with it. But outside of that, it's actually fine. And so because I do create reports and such, I got to make sure they're fine.
Pixel perfect, yeah. I don't know how I got into it, but the last few years I've been using FreeOffice, which is a very, very close clone to actual Office, and yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, I think it does a really respectable job of reproducing. It's very. I haven't seen any rendering issues where something didn't, because I've had that same issue that you're talking about, particularly with embedded images and stuff like that. For whatever reason, LibreOffice just doesn't. Yeah, I've had so many weird problems with LibreOffice, like you were saying, the Zoom and all that stuff. Like I've just weird things, and then it's always disconcerting to me when I have a problem and I search for it and can't find anything, and it's always like, huh. This thing's being used by millions of people. I'm literally the only person that's come up with this. Like,
Yep.
So
it seems odd.
Interestingly enough, so actually the issue that I have with FreeOffice, because I've installed FreeOffice, Only Office, and I have LibreOffice, of course. And
what? Not WPS Office?
So I don't do that one because I don't trust it.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why I don't use it.
Yeah, I don't. I have to. Especially
the WPS Office.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of with you.
Yeah, but anyway, it looks good though. So one of the issues that I have with the only one of the three that can actually display the Excel spreadsheets properly is LibreOffice. The for PowerPoints and for documents, Word documents, the Only Office or FreeOffice work better for like the padding and whatnot. They're still a little bit off, and then so I don't know, and so it's just to me it's just like it's an Office nightmare.
Do you remember what specifically in FreeOffice Plan Maker wasn't working? Because that's one of the reasons I went with FreeOffice.
Tilted, having the text tilted on the top, like when you have a bunch of stuff, like you want to have them like displayed like at an angle or whatever.
Oh yeah,
you can't do that.
Yep. No kidding. What an oddly specific thing.
Yeah. And then
that's very useful. No, and that's something. Yeah, Excel's had that forever.
Right.
So
are we waiting for the year of the Linux Office?
No. No, honestly,
it's funny. Home users really, and especially for something like a spreadsheet application, like almost no one's going to notice that particularly. That's why I asked the question, because I use it for pretty basic stuff. I mean, when I was doing IT stuff, I did a lot of like pivot tables and like more advanced Excel type stuff for reporting and sort of, lots of pivot tables are like magic. And if you've never used them, it's a great way to like sort of quantify data and do reports, custom reports on big data sets and stuff like that. But anyway, not something that a home user is ever really going to come across. And so, and that's sort of like these business class applications are really, I think, one of the biggest use cases for needing to still fall back to Windows because of enterprise level software that only runs on Windows, or doesn't run as well on Linux, or doesn't run under Wine, or whatever the case is. I know, weren't you doing something with CAD as well that was Windows only, or maybe
Fusion 360? It could work in Linux, but like every time there was an update, I felt like Autodesk was specifically trying to break Wine, and so it had to be another like little tweaking, and eventually just kind of give up.
Yeah, gotcha.
I sent them a bunch of strongly worded emails, but I didn't get any responses.
Well, I can't believe it. You're one of like 20 Linux users. They should pay attention to you.
I know, right? This whole chicken and the egg thing. I think honestly, if just one of them, just one of the major. Well, Vericat is okay, I guess. One of the major players just built it against Wine to make it work. I think that there would be a lot of users of Linux. I think it's just a lot of people are just, if only it ran that. It's just that sort of thing. But I guess there's testing and you have to justify that and whatnot. So,
well, it really wouldn't. necessarily be wine. It'd have to be like a Proton version built to run that.
It would be. I mean, that's what wine. Proton is just a.
Well, yeah,
customized version of
Proton
wine.
is a souped up wine for certain applications.
Sure, yeah, it has some optimizations, but it's still. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's just one.
Maybe that's something we can talk about later in the show because I don't want to clog
Sure.
us up now with it. But I love that idea that we've talked about. Game developers could potentially use Proton as a way to, make their games accessible on Linux as long as it works in Proton, and maybe other things look at wine as sort of being the same way. Like, well, maybe there's not a Linux native version, but as long as it worked in wine, then technically, it would work.
Actually, there are some developers who do go the extra mile. I noticed that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which is originally developed by Insomniac but ported by Nixies, they actually have Steam Deck button layouts and stuff in the when you play it on the Steam Deck. And
wow,
it's a PlayStation game originally. They had no need to do that, but they did. So they went the extra mile. And even Cyberpunk has a Steam Deck like preset for the graphics and stuff. So like some developers really do care, and they're like, yeah, it's not Linux native, but we'll put forth the effort to at least make it a first-class citizen on the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding that PlayStation games run really good on Linux with Steam.
So there is hope, Eric. There is
yes.
hope.
Well, I just, I get that if you're in a company that has to be very careful about its development budget and you say like, can we make a Linux native version? I mean, there's going to be start to see things go from that traditional $49.99 up to like a $59 or a $69. And there've always been box sets or special, releases and stuff like that. But I mean, the idea that the base game.
Oh,
what happened?
Sorry.
It's better just to wait because the games, even with the games increase in price, they're actually getting worse at releasing them in working condition.
Well,
that is true.
That argument of like nothing's ever quite finished, or you're buying a beta if you're lucky version.
Yeah, it's like the project developer, the head guy saying, "Okay, you've been playing with it long enough. Throw it out there whether it works or not. We'll deal with the backlash later."
That is the way software development works nowadays. It's this sort of
meet the deadline or it doesn't happen.
There is no such thing as finished in the way that modern software development sort of works. Yeah. There's no final build or it's just sort of.
Well, they used to get it somewhat right when they put games on DVDs and you had to buy them at the store.
I'm not saying that it wasn't like that, but also let's keep in mind that things have gotten much more complicated, in my opinion. In terms of like the engines, the technologies, the assets, the
size.
Everything.
I mean, the last game I bought was 100 gigabytes in size. It took me 24 hours to get all of it.
It's crazy. I have a terabyte drive that I have for my Steam games, and it's like I have to choose because the one game is like, yeah, that's a 200 gigabyte. I'm like, what?
Holy cow.
That being said, think about what an absolute steal you're getting in a lot of the AAA games that are hundreds of millions of dollars, and all you got to pay is 70.
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah,
no, I get it.
That's a valid point.
And honestly, the price was 60 for way too long. It should have been 70 before, to be honest.
Agree.
We wouldn't be riddled with microtransactions and other stuff if the price had just gone up accordingly.
But at the same time, and again, I know I'm way off in the weeds here. I apologize, but I saw today that Amazon next year is going to start charging Prime members an extra $3 a month if you don't want to watch commercials. And I'm just like sort of tired of this. At a certain point, you just got to say like, what is the cost here? Like, what am I getting? Or I don't know. It's really frustrating.
I did get a request from a listener, actually someone who's here, who frequents the show, that asked if we could talk about streaming services. So maybe like for an open mic night or something. I think that
would be great.
Yeah, I use a lot of them.
But actually, like
Yeah, we
I'm
can do that.
I'm interested in like what you use, and there's some other suggestions too, and so I think it'd be
Yeah.
good to chat about. But
Yeah.
I do want to get on to the straw poll. So Eris, you did a straw poll, and it is about how the exploration went for Debian 12. So how'd that go? Wait to see here.
The
So
question,
Oh, yeah.
so the question was, how was your experience with Debian 12 Bookworm like? And the number one response was with 40%, it is amazing. Slow and steady wins the race. Rest in peace, hair. The number two answer was 16%, it is okay. Then is 12%, it is good. 12% not interested in this exploration. 12% didn't have enough time. 4% not interested in doing the explorations in general. 4% other. And that's it. No votes for Tux Penguin this time.
Whoa.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row. No
Yeah,
votes for
Tux Penguin's really losing popularity in these straw polls. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that? Yeah.
I got one response, and the response or reply was, I put in busy, but really I do want to explore, but I just don't really want to have to reinstall it next year to get Plasma 6.0, since the situation with KDE backporting is not very clear right now.
And that's backporting in Debian specifically?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what do we want to do for the? We want to jump straight into Debian, or how do you?
Yeah, may as well.
Proceed, sir.
So Debian 12 Bookworm is what our exploration was about, and just some quick ground rules about these explorations. The intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss your experience in using it. This is a discussion that should be objective and constructive, so we want to avoid any non-objective opinions like this is garbage, because that's not really helpful in fostering good conversation. But if you say, I wish it had this specific feature, that would really be a lot more productive. The point is to highlight the positives, but not to ignore the lowlights of the project. Because remember, this is a labor of love, so let's not poo-poo on it. And I know that Debian is a non-commercial entirely distribution, so there is no, Ubuntu funds a lot of it, but I mean, it's still not really, it's a community-driven project, so. Yeah, sure, Eric, if you want to do a little bit about Debian, that would be fantastic. I was gonna ask you in the chat, but then the stream died, and then I got really upset, and I started like hitting my desk here a little bit, and so I can get there.
I understand. So I think everybody is well aware that Debian is one of those just, long-lasting sort of stalwart, distros, and but they recently, a little over a month ago, celebrated 30 years, which when I heard that, I was just like, I mean, I knew it was getting close, but I can't believe, 30 years that 30 years ago, the late Ian Murdoch wrote to the comp.os.linux.development newsgroup about the completion of a brand new Linux release, which he had named the Debian Linux release. He built the release by hand, from scratch, so to speak. Ian laid out guidelines for how this new release would work, what approach the release would take regarding its size, manner of upgrades, installation procedures, and with great care of consideration for users without internet connections, which at the time was a big deal. Unaware that he had sparked a movement in the fledgling free and open source software community, Ian worked on and continued to work on Debian. The release, now aided by volunteers from the news group and around the world, grew and continues to grow as one of the largest and oldest free operating systems that still exists today. Debian, at its core, is comprised of users, contributors, developers, and sponsors, but most importantly, people. And the current release of Debian was released after 1 year, 9 months, and 28 days of development. Bookworm was released on May 24th. So, yeah, quite a storied history, and continues to be the basis for so many things in the Linux realm, from server to desktop and everything in between. And yeah, no end in sight. And very in terms of like how you run an open software organization, like I think they sort of made a lot of this sort of like up as they went, but they've sort of laid the groundwork for so much of this. And yeah, slow and steady winning the race, as the StrawPoll mentioned, but that's always been their approach, is just sort of very measured, very slow, very stable. And yeah, anyone want to start off, either have any comments about their history with Debian, or want to start off with this particular release and the setup process and things like that?
It is the granddaddy of them next to Slackware.
Yeah.
That is very true, Dan. That is so darn true.
This is definitely true.
Yes.
I remember running Debian was the first distro that I had experience with. I needed a file server specifically. And so I created a Samba file server in early 2000s, like, I don't know, 2003 maybe. And I was just amazed at how easy it was to get set up. And then once I had that server running, it ran for, I want to say, about 5 or 6 years, to the point where I almost would forget that it existed, because it never had a problem and never was a problem to update and keep running. It was just, it was the closest thing to like an appliance that I've ever had from a server perspective, because at that point it was also very simple, because I wasn't doing too much with it other than that just dedicated file server. But coming from the Novell NetWare and also the NT realm, I just couldn't believe how easy it was to use and how well it worked continuously with no intervention on my part. So, Swift, do you have your hand up?
He does.
Yeah, so I really appreciate using Debian. I kind of stayed away from it for a minute. It was 10 years to even start using Debian in the first place. I'm so used to the Ubuntu-based operating systems like when it's meant, but I find that I really like it. To this day, I still have it on my X201, and I'm just looking forward to, I am looking forward to putting the new Debian on there. I just haven't quite gotten around to it just yet, but it'll be nice to see it. I'm glad that it's so stable, and yeah, nothing but good things.
I think you said you wanted to go, or was that about something else? No? Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, that was all.
So I installed the KD Plasma version of Debian, of course, because
you did?
Yes.
Wow.
And I really like what they did. One of the things I really appreciate that they shoved right in there is, well, actually, let me back up before I get to that part. I thought the install was super easy. I think they've done a lot to make it really easy to get from point A to point B. There's no well, golly, what is this? In the installation process, they give you, I think, just enough granular control to get it set up pretty well, but not overwhelm you with any like mundane details. So I think it's a good mix, especially like just doing a basic install. I think it's quite nice. I'm really actually impressed with the speed of installation too. So I know maybe they have like a series of things that they decompress to make it like a series of like squash FS. I don't know if they use that or whatnot, but
the
it's
packaging is compressed when you're getting the pieces, and they get unpressed or decompressed when they go to install them.
So yeah, it was nice and quick. They use the I don't know if it's, I think all the distributions are basically using it now, all the Plasma-based distributions, but the menu that they use in there, I like. It's all right. I like it. It doesn't have like the recently used option in there, which I wish that particular menu thing had, which it does not. I use that kind of frequently, so that's too bad. But I think for most people, it's probably just fine. And it's a nice looking Debian desktop.
Did you use the net installer or did you use an ISO build?
I use the ISO. I use the full on offline.
Oh, you cheated.
I don't think that's cheating, but
you cheated. You didn't use the net installer and go and do pure Debian.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Didn't realize it was the competition.
I didn't either. So what I do like is that the default graphical theme, or the plasma theme, I think is pretty decent. It's kind of like what Fedora's Twilight plasma version theme. So it's like the elements are all dark, but the components, like the actual Windows net itself, are the lighter color. So it's kind of a nice mix. It's in between the dark theme and a light theme. It's kind of a Twilight theme. So I do like that they use that as by default. I do prefer the dark, but I think this is a nice alternative, I think.
Now, when you installed your ISO, did it come with a bunch of games in the game menu?
I didn't.
They like to package a bunch of old-fashioned retro games in your game menu item.
Mine's got it.
Mine did not.
Mine's got a whole heap of games.
The net installer will give you about 10 of them, and the best way to do it is use the GNOME store to uninstall them.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I do like that they had by default they have the KDE partition manager in there, which is kind of like gparted, but the KDE version of it. So that was automatically installed, which I think was brilliant, because that should be installed by default, I think.
Yes,
on distribution.
it is.
And here's looking at you, OpenSUSE. Anyway, that's one thing I think I appreciate. I think it's a nice, good complement of. They use Firefox ESR. Not really a fan of that, but it is Debian, so I think that's if I need another version of, I can just download the Flatpak. It's not a big deal.
Well, you can also get the Firefox all-in-one package and unzip it in like a bin folder in your home folder.
Not doing that. I want system manage it.
What do you mean?
So since I had just, go ahead, Swift. That's okay.
What do you mean by the all-in-one package for Firefox?
It's a JZ packaged file. That's one file, and you use the package manager to extract it as if it was a zip file into a folder, and everything it needs is in that folder, including its ability to update itself when it's needed.
You go directly to Firefox website, and then you can download it. It's universal for every Linux system.
I use this because I'm able to use that particular zipped up thing and the .mozilla folder, and I can transfer everything from one computer to another computer without logging in. All my streaming services are there and they're logged in. I don't have to do nothing. Everything's logged in, ready to go by just transferring a few files from one computer to another.
Yeah, I did this thing, Dan.
Now this Firefox this is not installed at all. Like you just like Dan says, you put it in a folder, and then it just works in the background to update itself.
Well, you have to go into the folder, and you have to use the command line to start Firefox.
But I thought it was a binary file. I thought you double click on it. It's a binary file, isn't it?
Yes.
I thought. Yeah. You don't have to. You don't have to use terminal. You can double click. It'll open. I'm pretty sure.
Dan was talking about updating it.
Well, I wasn't getting there, but yeah, it pops up a box now and then asking you to update it. That's kind of an annoyance because Mozilla likes to do that like 3 times a month. But I made what's called a .desktop file, and it goes into your locals shared app folder in your home folder, and then the Firefox, when you set it up all right, shows up in your menu. Then you just go to your menu to there you can pin an icon to your panel or something like that. But I use that just strictly for transporting stuff that's got a lot of login junk and everything from one folder to another, from one computer to another.
So just for fun, because I had just used Rhino Linux and had been using Packstall on there, I thought, oh, well, let me see if Packstall works on here, and then I can get rid of Firefox CSR and get, you know, the latest version of Firefox and Thunderbird and like all this stuff. And yeah, works great. And, you know, Packstall, if you're not aware, is, I really wish they wouldn't say it this way, but they call it the AUR for
the AUR, the Ubuntu.
Ubuntu or Debian-based AUR. I don't really like that comparison personally, but anyway.
Does it bother you? Does it cause you like angst?
No, I think the AUR is the AUR, and there's no reason to say you are the AUR of anything. You could just say we are a alternative package manager that makes it easier to get software on a Debian-based system. But hey, that's just me, right? Actually, the way I actually think it's more like Winget or Chocolatey, or one of the Mac ones. What are the
it's a bit like that.
Ports.
Yeah.
That to me, it's much more analogous to that. But anyway,
I think you meant homebrew, right?
Homebrew, right? What did I say?
I think they're just using that analogy to just let people know that's roughly how it works. It's just an alternative package manager.
The nice thing is, basically, is it just saves you the step of like going and getting the executable or the deb file or whatever from wherever. And the nice thing is that it does, just like Dan was saying, like it creates the desktop file for you and puts it in the menu, and you know, and then it lets you manage it through the Packstall command. You can update and then any of the packages that need to be updated. So anyway, I just thought, oh, this is an interesting alternative way to managing software that isn't in the repositories, which for something like Debian is going to be a lot of software that isn't like standard kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I admit about half of my software is Flatpaks or an app image.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong. And you can, I just don't like the Flatpak version of Firefox. I don't think it works particularly well for me. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. So anyway, Packstall was kind of.
I have the Flatpak version of Libre Wolf, which is like a Firefox clone, but it's more privacy orientated. That works pretty good.
Okay.
I've had no trouble. As a matter of fact, I'm using it right now to watch the stream and the chat and everything like that.
Gotcha.
But the Firefox, the only reason I get that package is because it's the only non-Googleized browsers that we have that has DMR enabled for the streaming services.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
that even makes it more portable for me if I want multiple laptops, you know, to stream on. If battery goes dead in one, I get another one, and you know, I can keep them all in sync real easy.
Got it.
Not to brag or anything, but this is why I made these YAD forms that I was talking about a little while ago, Nate. That downloads the Firefox. It actually extracts it. It puts it in the user bin, I think, and it also creates the .desktop file and everything automatically. So all I have to do is press a button. It does all that. So it's a lot of hard work to set up, but once it's set up, it's done. So all you need to do is press buttons. Firefox is installed.
Yeah, I keep that in my home folder so it doesn't become a root item.
What is that YAD file? What were you saying?
YAD forms. YAD forms.
YAD forms. Okay.
Yeah, it's a fork of what people will probably know of as Zenity. It's a fork of Zenity or whatever it is. It just creates a form for you, so you don't have to do all the work to create a form and buttons and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool.
Is that like YAML, like yet another? Like it's sounds like that. Is that what it stands for?
No, it's not. No, pretty much what you do is you create bash scripts, and then the form creates a nice little GUI with a button, and then you create a link with that button to the bash script, and that bash script does it all for you. So, and I've got
reading
everything
about what it is, and I'm like going, how does this help?
It's really cool. So I've made a whole heap of bash scripts and for different bases and that I can do that sort of thing with. So I'm
That
going to
is
be
cool.
making a video about it when I get the
Okay.
chance.
How many
Yeah, I'd
people
like to see that.
installed Debian and found out that they didn't have sudo privileges when they went to run sudo?
That was such a common thing for so long.
Yeah, it has been.
You know,
Not with the calamari installer.
Yeah,
I
well,
suppose
true.
Nate, if you got the ISO build, you had full sudo out of the box.
So
No.
I've if you
Instead of having to use SU.
if you're
I
using
largely
the
use
old
SU.
style installer, like the the net installer or whatever,
Yeah.
it actually tells you that when it asks you to put in a root password, if you leave that blank and then create a user, it automatically puts it in the sudo user.
That's correct. Yep.
And then
It didn't
if
for
you
me.
if you use the live ISO, that will make your user account with the sudo privilege list. So
I always have to open the sudoers file in Etsy and add my name to it, and then I get sudo privileges.
You just add yourself to the sudo group. That's the same thing. I mean,
I must have missed something in the installer because I put all the junk in it that it had a field to put something in, and still, I knew it was coming at the end anyways because okay, let's open up Nano, let's go find a sudoers file, let's fix this.
Dan,
the way that
may I just say for the group that you've been missed?
Yeah, right.
You have. I'm not being.
The way that part of the installer is, it tells you in order please make a password for the root account, and then it says in order to have a password you should have like a mixture of letters and all these things, and then at the end of there's all this text. It says if you do not set up a root password, the root account will be locked and your user will be given user sudo privileges.
Is that with the net installer?
Yes. So most people don't read the whole thing until like to the end, and they miss that portion where it says that. It's all the way at the end after a lot of text talking about the way to correct a good and a long, complicated password.
Because I put all the passwords in, it would let me use the SU with the password, but not sudo.
Yeah.
And then I had to install sudo too. It didn't come with sudo installed.
Well, I tried sudo and I was reported to the administrator because I wasn't part of the file.
Oh, you know what? You guys just installed it, so you got Debian 12.2 instead of 12.1. They might have fixed something in the last few months over that.
If you don't have sudo, what is that? A minimal install? I think there is a minimal install where you don't get sudo.
Okay.
Yeah, through the net installer. But
yeah,
when it first came out, it was Debian 12.1, and now some kernels have been updated and stuff like that. Now I'm on 12.2.
Well, you're building it from scratch then, and that's like my favorite way to build Debian up.
Yes, me too.
If you don't even have sudo, I mean, you're beginning from the bottom, which is great.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly the feeling I had where it was like I would go to try to do something that, is normally, and I was using like maybe one of the text editors on the command line or something that usually is there on most distros. And yeah, it was just kind of like, well, that's not there. Well, yeah, of course it's not there. Why would it be? This is Debian. And it was kind of I don't know. Sometimes I'm just sort of over the building it up part, but I could see with a new Debian box. I mean, Debian feels like one of those things that you are in it for the long haul. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, when they're setting up a Debian box, that thing's going to be running for a while. So
yeah, at least 2 years.
So the cool part is you're not forced to do the long haul with Debian because the things that you set up usually are compatible with a very wide range of different operating systems. Like you don't have to change that much in your install guide to get it to work anywhere. Like I moved to Fedora from Debian for a while, and some things needed to change, but more or less it's like most of it was the same. I mean, I had to learn SE Linux versus AppArmor and stuff like that, but you know, if someone's sticking on Debian, I think it's because it's just hyper reliable and they really like it. So
that is true. I tried to break mine really hard today, but I was able to back out it and fix it just by getting the latest NVIDIA driver from a .run file.
you're not just getting it from the repo? You can do non-free in the sources list, and then
it will not give you anything more than the 525 driver.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, because it's
I wanted the 535 driver, because now the games are telling you when you start them up, your driver's too old. Go get a new one.
Oh,
that's not very nice. So
no, it ain't. Kind of gets under your skin when you're a boomer.
All right. So Ron Singh says, is it better to have root disabled and have your user profile be a member of sudo? Asking for a friend. And it's like, seems like different distributions do that differently. Now I know that if you use sudo, it'll actually invoke the root user password and so forth. So I don't know. I'm not a security expert there. I'm not sure what is better. But he's asking for a friend, so maybe he's asking for me. What do you think?
A lot of IT guys that I've chatted with online prefer the SU. They seem to think that it is more secure in some ways. And sudo was developed just to make SU more easier to get around in the root.
So it's like a philosophical question in some ways.
If I like philosophical Linux.
Okay, so let's say you do run only the root account, right? Mm-hmm. You're not gonna run sudo. So you don't run sudo, you have less packages. Sudo is a very big and complicated program, I guess some people say. So that opens you up to more vulnerabilities. You will always have to run like the packages to run like to run sudo. I mean to get root privileges like the traditional way without sudo. So that will not change, but you will avoid the sudo potential vulnerabilities. Now, on the other hand, if you have the root account locked, it's harder for somebody to gain access to the computer by logging in because they don't know the username. They don't know your username and password. Now, if the root account is available, but of course with a password, you already know there's a root account. You already have half the information to log in. You just need the root password, whatever that is. So it just depends how you look at it.
It's one thing Debian does that also annoys me, and it's probably a good thing anyways, even though it gets under my skin, is you have to put your username in with your password to get in the machine. Or most distros have done away with adding a username.
And that was standard security practice forever and a day. And we've really just kind of said, there's no reason to not.
Yeah, you can make your username something semi-complicated, so it's really hard to guess.
So username's going to be hard to guess, period, unless they know it's your first name or something. It could be anything.
So Guru the Digital said you can also lock down which programs a user is allowed to run with sudo as well. So that's something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, we do that at work, actually.
Then
whenever people request sudo access.
Okay.
Request what exactly they need, and then we give them sudo access for what they need, not the whole thing.
That makes sense.
And if anyone doesn't have a good answer, you're like, no, sorry, you can't have sudo access.
No, that's someone else's decision, not mine. But yeah, I just fill out the configs.
Well, what do you mean? What do I want it for? Because I want the power.
I want to install something later, just in case.
Yeah, they got to go through the security people. They filter that out. They just send me put this guy into sudo. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I don't even know what. I mean, the different ideas out there. I know that you can have like root be blocked for remote access. Like you can't remotely get into a machine with root.
And in the SSH config, there's an option there to not be able to log in with a password, and you must use the what is that called? Like the keys, like the
pre-shared keys.
Yeah, pre-shared keys instead.
Yeah,
we actually have our Linux servers joined to the domain at work, so we authenticate them through SSSD. And
not LDAP.
So SSSD is the application that runs on the servers that authenticates with Active Directory.
Okay.
And so you have all of the Active Directory permissions and stuff accordingly, and then those get applied. Group policy doesn't get applied, but for authentication's sake. So we don't have to manage their users on the server or anything. Their users and credentials are handled in AD, so I don't have to deal with that. And then as far as adding them to sudoers, it's usually a matter of adding a group to sudoers, like maybe a SQL DBA group needs certain things or that kind of thing. So that's also an option if you're in like an organization that uses AD.
So do you have different sudo groups that have different permissions? So you just group them that way?
Yeah. So in SSSD, you can specify the groups that have access to the server at all. So that can SSH into the server or anything. And then in sudoers, you can put like a % in front of the name, and that indicates a group. So you can do like % and then the AD group and then the sudoer permissions after that.
Got it.
So
well, Adam, it's been great talking to you today. I'm going to send you a follow-up email with a link in it, and I'd like you to go ahead and click that link for me and let me know.
That sounds like a phishing attempt to me.
I almost fell for it. No.
I love hearing that over and over and over again, where it's like companies with billion-dollar security, and it's like, yeah, some low level.
It's always social engineering, like 90% of the time, it seems.
Yep. Over and over.
I think I have to say, I think the best desktop that came out with Debian was probably KDE, because that was most up to date, I think, out of all the desktops Debian released. Yeah, 27.5 is it?
5.27, I believe.
Sorry, 5.27. That 5.27. Yeah.
Cinnamon is really good too.
I'm using the Cinnamon version. I think it's one version behind, is it? It's 5.6, I think.
Yeah, there's one thing I noticed there's one like setting that's missing from the control panel.
And you know, between LMDE and Debian with Cinnamon, there is very little difference there, other than with LMDE, you get the Mint package manager and all that stuff with it, which is, you know, fine. I can do without that because I wrote my own update system for packaging and all that, and it even includes get the Flatpaks too.
I always thought you said something else, but I'm glad he said Flatpak.
No, I think I mean I'm using. I've been running Arch for 2 years, the Easy Archer, and I use Flatpaks on that, and it's sort of like one extreme to the other. So if I was to go to Debian, I could still use Flatpaks on that and have, like, there's certain programs I use with Flatpaks, which is OBS, Kdenlive. They seem to work consistently, and they can follow you no matter what base you're on, whether it's rolling or stable. Right, you can have like a stable application, a set of applications that you can use regardless. So I think the fact that Debian's a bit behind, it's a shame they can't update desktops. It'd be nice if they could be very stable, but update the desktop would be nice. But I think that the fact that the applications are a bit older is out the window now. I think we've got Flatpaks we can use. Don't know if it covers everybody, but that certainly covers my use case anyway.
What happens with Debian is you get the new version, and it comes with almost the newest everything. But the packages, as far as apps go, they rarely get an update to anything newer. And then by the time Debian gets to the end of its 2-year life cycle, the packages are so old, everybody's complaining about them until a new Debian comes out with the latest stuff all over again. It's a big rolling thing.
So you have your repo packages, right? And they don't get updated. And then there's always the possibility of a backport whenever that comes. And backport, and now we also have snaps. So you can use snaps if you want, or you can use Flatpaks, or you can use app images, or you can install Nix and use Nix packages. And Eric said the Packstall.
Packstall, Packstall. Oh, you can install that on Debian as well, can't you?
Yeah, I use that to get.
Can you? You can.
Yeah, I used
install
that
on
Debian. Firefox and Thunderbird and
Right. Is that in apt?
No, you download the deb.
Oh, you download the deb. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you download
Yeah,
the
never
deb
thought of
and
that.
then- Yeah, yeah, it works pretty well actually.
Before you get a backported program for Debian, you probably should go to the Debian website and they have like a wiki page of who's working on what project, and they'll rate it on either stable, unstable, or suitable to be released, and make sure it's at least marked as stable by the guy that's working on it.
Got it.
Right.
You can also do what Peppermint does, and you can actually get the Firefox from SID or whatever testing, and put that into stable, pin the package. So
Yeah.
it only that updates, not the whole everything to the other mode of Debian.
So
True that.
I was actually amused how, years ago when I first used Debian, there's one option. It was very easy. You just install the deb. But then you just said you install the flat pack. They have now on Discover, they have a flat pack backend, a snap backend. You're talking about, what was the other, like the universal installer thing for Debian? What would you call that? The
Packstall?
Packstall? Is it pack? How do you spell that?
Packstall.
PACK.
It's like install, but PAC instead of install.
Oh, Packstall.
Okay.
Packstall. Then you have app images. So in an effort to make things more universal, things a lot more complicated, and I find that amusing. I'm extremely amused by that. So anyway, yeah. Did anybody have any trouble getting the Flatpak set up in Debian?
No.
No, it kind of, the Flatpak store actually had instructions for whatever distro you're using, and they were fairly simple for Debian.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues. Stuff showed up in the menu, and I've been trying to do sort of a mix of things. That's why I used Packstall. So instead of just using Flatpak, not that I've had any problems with it necessarily, but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to try some different things, and yeah, I really, besides needing to install more things than I anticipated, just because it's that, like Ulfnic said, it's sort of that, building it up process. Although I will say that by installing the Cinnamon desktop, it did install a bunch of sort of helper applications and a pretty decent set of packages. I kind of remember Debian having like a very sparse desktop environment, like not really curated in any way. Like you just sort of got the default whatever for, GNOME and Plasma and Cinnamon and any of the desktops available. But this seemed to be a little more curated. Like there was some theming, and there were some like helper applications and stuff pre-installed. And I don't know.
There's like three ways. There's like three ways for like the desktops. Like the live ISOs are probably like the biggest desktop you can get with all different packages, probably the most games and everything.
What it is then. Okay.
And then if you go into the net install and pick like KDE from there or whatever, it's a smaller section, a smaller software than the ISOs, the live ISOs. And now every desktop also, sometimes, not all of them, but I think some of them have like a minimal install. So you just get the desktop itself, and you can build from there.
And I've been looking at this Packstall link here. It says it's the AUR for Ubuntu, but does that mean it works for Debian as well?
Yeah, it does it? I think Eric said it does.
Wait, say that again, Dan?
I'm on the link that was posted in the YouTube chat for Packstall. Yeah. It says the AUR for Ubuntu. Does that mean it'll also work for Debian?
Yes, and it does, because I tried it too. Yeah, there are a couple dependencies, but they were in the default repos of Debian, and yeah, no, it worked fine. I don't remember having to do anything special. I just downloaded the deb file, installed it, and ran it from the command line. And it's a very simple package manager like, search, install, remove, update. Like it's not a lot you can do with it besides, it goes out and searches the repository that it has on GitHub. Basically, all the pack scripts, they call them, are if you look at them, so the thing that does make it like the AUR is that it has the repository, and the pack scripts are like the package builds.
Recipes.
Yeah, they're like the package builds on the AUR, and it's just a text file. You open it up, and you can literally see step by step what it's doing, and most of them are going to get the source files from somewhere, and whether that's already the binary package file, the deb file, or whether it's going to get source files and it's compiling it itself, or whatever it needs to do. And then you can see how it does those steps, and then if it needs to, it creates the desktop file and puts it in the right folder if it needs to. It's really actually very sort of simple and straightforward, and I like that it's easy to look at and read. It's human readable, and so yeah. So Dan, they maintain, if you go on their GitHub repository, you'll see they have a list of all of and on the website too, you can search for different packages to see what they have and what they don't. And they've got most of the like common stuff you'd expect, all of the sort of normal desktop stuff. I got Discord and Firefox, Thunderbird, I don't know, like a bunch of stuff like that. So
yeah, my Discord's a flat pack, but I didn't know it came as a regular version. Because Discord's kind of funny because it's proprietary. It's not open sourced. It's a proprietary program, and that's why they put it in the flat pack thing, because they don't want people playing with their code.
Right. So I have Bitwarden, Discord, Firefox, Telegram, ULauncher, and Thunderbird.
Because people say snaps are no good because it's up to the developers to audit them and stuff like that, Well, you can say the same thing about app images and flat packs too, because there's proprietary junk in there that's not open source to anybody except the developers, because they're using it to make money or whatever the case may be. So, no one else is going to look at the code because it's not lookable. It's not out in the public for people to see.
Which one's not
Discord?
Oh, well, yeah.
And whether that's one of them, Telegram's another one.
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to mention, I think the Debian release is very good. It's on the 6.1 kernel, which is pretty up to date. So I'd have to think, Adam would probably know this, but I have to think if you've got a computer within the last 12 months or anywhere before, you're going to be doing okay on that kernel, I would have to think. So that's
because I got a machine that's fairly new. It's got the Ryzen 7700X in it with the PCI 5 lanes and DDR5 RAM and all that stuff. It's pretty zippy. But
so current, on kernel.org, the current long-term 6 series kernel is 6.1.55. And that's their long term. And the one that's on Debian 12 right now is 6.1.0-12. So it's a little out of date, but that's a very new kernel. You're right.
It is. It's a good kernel.
When I first built this machine, I couldn't even get it to work until I could backport from backports a 6.0 kernel until the new Debian came out.
I'd like to point out that with the Plasma install, the default desktop configuration was Wayland for the display server, not X11 for Debian, which to me seems like that's a little bit that's very forward-leaning for Debian.
I think that Wayland or Xorg depends on your desktop. It's more desktop oriented than base system.
Well, even for
I think.
I'm just saying, even OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, the default is still X11. So the fact that that Debian, the default, like unless if you go and change it, it's Wayland by default, which it's fine. I mean, I think for most people that's not going to be an issue, but I just thought that was interesting.
So in other words, on your SUSE build with KDE, it's not Wayland, it's X, and then on Debian it's Wayland.
I'm running Wayland, but the default last time I installed it, which was June, a fresh install, X was the default.
Okay.
So
I think you'll find with GNOME and KDE, I think they're both. I'm pretty sure they're both default Wayland in Debian. I think because, I think only those two desktops. I think you'll find, which is obvious because they're the ones pushing forward with Wayland. Those two mainly.
Well, right. You know, they've been working on Wayland for years. Pipewire is like the latest, greatest thing, and it only took them like a few years to push that right out, you know, to the point where Debian now packages it with their system.
To be fair now, Dan, an audio system is way less complicated than Wayland, in my opinion.
That's true. But
just saying, especially the way that they modularized some things, and like it taking over for something like X is, that's a different beast.
So the way Pipewire works is it does like a it fills like the space of Pulse Audio. It's a drop-in replacement. So everything that worked with Pulse Audio should just work with Pipewire, and that is not at all how Wayland works. Wayland is like completely different, breaks everything, and you got to rework everything. So that's why it was never going to work like that with Wayland.
I know you can't really game very well on Wayland. X is the way to go for gaming.
I don't know that any of these things
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Yeah, I'm going to say Adam's probably going to say no.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there. So Wayland is just fine for gaming. Even on NVIDIA, works pretty well on AMD as well. Everything just runs in an X Wayland environment anyway. And I've had no troubles. Even things like variable refresh rate work under Wayland, even with NVIDIA with G-Sync, which
I haven't tried.
If you scour the internet, you will see numerous reports that G-Sync doesn't work. However, it does. And I have video proof to show you if you need. But
no, it's been a year for me, so I'm not up to date on my jibber jabber.
Yeah, it totally works just fine.
So by default, it looks like this install of Debian uses Pulse Audio, not Pipewire.
Yes. If you got the net install, I can say it's a definite yes.
I use the full-blown the DVD install, but anyway.
If you use the ISO, I don't know what comes on it.
I just told you. So the
the ISO builds are not direct Debian builds; those are supporter group builds.
I know. I just told you though. It's Pulse Audio.
It's Pulse Audio on yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, mine's Pipewire because I got it from that installer.
But anyway, so Adam, I'm curious to know. You said you game using Wayland.
That I do.
And have you had any games not work in Wayland?
No.
Oh, see, that's been my
games that I've had not
too.
work in Wayland are the same ones that don't work under X.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
That's under NVIDIA and AMD both.
That's cool. I just have Zoom is the only thing I think that's keeping me right now from Wayland. Zoom and something else.
Talking about the screen sharing?
No, screen sharing's fine in Wayland now.
Oh.
Like in the last, it's been fine in the last couple of weeks. I because they use some sort of Pipewire thing now, so it actually uses Pipewire to share your screen. It actually works really well. Actually, a really cool application called it's a GNOME Network Display. Has anybody played with that? Nope.
Nah.
Crickets. So if you have a Miracast capable like smart TV or device, you can wirelessly beam an additional monitor to that device using GNOME network displays. It's a standard protocol. Like I think Samsung has it built in. They call it something else. Every manufacturer calls it something else, but it's built on Miracast. But you can install the flat pack GNOME network displays, and then you can beam your whatever you want to a network display to a lot of smart TVs have it. Like I think anyway, it's like casting, like Chromecasting. It's similar to that.
Like Chromecasting, yeah.
It's like that, yeah. But anyway, so it's really cool how it works is you can, when you go to initiate that, if you have PipeWire installed, I think it's PipeWire that it's part of the PipeWire system. It'll say, do you want to create a virtual display or do you want to mirror display? And you can basically select whatever it is that you want, and then you find the network device. It's done over Wi-Fi, so you can actually have multiple connections. Apparently, to different. It's some other standard. Anyway, it actually works really well. Kind of scary how well it works. And but yeah, check if you want to play with that, check that out. I think it's a newer Wi-Fi standard. I don't know for sure, but yeah, it's pretty wild.
One thing I'm really impressed over the new Debian from the old Debian is the Bluetooth is like kick butt. I mean, it works great. I mean, I just turn it on, grab a set of ordinary Bluetooth headphones, hit the switch on it, and within seconds, it's hooked up.
Dang.
Not even seconds. I mean, a blink of the eye. You just turn the Bluetooth on for the computer, flip this on, count 1, 2, and it goes boink, and it's connected.
Yeah.
I just thought that was excellent because I just struggle with it with the older Debian. It wouldn't always hook up really fast or anything like that. And I almost always have to struggle with it with my stereo because those Bluetooth adapters I got for that are very finicky.
All right. So any other thoughts about this installation of Debian? Maybe you want to we haven't covered. Vince, I haven't heard from you at all. I don't know if you're just here to listen and show your avatar.
Penguin.
Sorry, I just had a mouthful of food as you spoke to me.
What?
How do they always know?
No, I don't have a lot to say about Debian. The closest Debian I use is probably Raspberry Pi OS, and that's just been solid. No, don't even touch it. It just works. It's done. Like Eric was saying earlier about having an appliance, right? The thing just keeps chugging along. Super. But I haven't tried the newest Debian, so this thing's still running on Bullseye.
Okay.
Hey, Vince.
I got a story about a Debian project I've been working on lately. I don't know if this is good timing or if you want to punt it to next episode, Nate.
What is this the what we talked about a little bit ago?
It's to do with AI. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I want to talk about you specifically, but I want to wrap up the Debian piece of it, and then I want you to bring that up if you could.
Okay.
All right. So cool. All right. Any last thoughts on Debian before we do some housekeeping and talk about next week?
I was just gonna mention that one of the big things about this release is that now, like the proprietary drivers and the firmware, that's all in the same installer. You don't have to search for the non-free ISOs like you used to. So that's a big change now in the ISOs. Much easier.
That is nice. I can't say I use much of the non-free stuff outside maybe Wi-Fi drivers. That might be it, I think.
That's usually the problem.
Yeah.
There's one bug I fixed last week, and I think it's Cinnamon specific because it doesn't seem to do it in Peppermint or anything. But when you come out of a suspend mode or you start from a boot up, the notification bell will pop up that it's connected to the network, but then it's got a button that says don't show this again. And you click that, and it continuously doesn't do nothing. It just keeps showing it every time you come out of one of the modes. But I did find a fix for that. And it requires using the dconf editor to go in and manually turn it off.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if anybody else is having that problem or if it's worth sharing the link.
But you can definitely share the link. I didn't have that particular problem, but I mean, someone else might. Could be hardware specific. John,
I just wanted to mention.
Go ahead, Colin.
I just wanted to mention if you wanted to find an easier way to find a Debian ISO, then you can go to my PC TLC website at the Debian under the Debian tab, and there's a nice, easy way of finding what you're looking for.
So I think you should share that link with everybody because
I put it in.
Share the link.
I put my link in the Zoom chat because I don't have privilege on YouTube.
There you go. Well, excellent.
I had a bit of a passion for that to try and make it a bit easier to find Debian ISOs because it is can be a very tough thing to do to find what you're looking for.
This is a very pretty website you have here.
It's a Wix one.
Still very pretty. Look at that. I highly recommend you go check out Colin's website. It's very pretty.
Thanks, Nate.
Fantastic. Yeah, I won't make mine that pretty.
I have to say, Colin, he's right. You do a very well job with that.
I'm going to give you a virtual pat on the back for that one, Colin.
Thanks, mate.
Not too hard, though. Not too hard.
Colin, you do a very nice job with your website. I will say that.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right. Anybody else? Sean, I don't know if you had anything to say on. Isn't Debian like your jam?
No. Debian's not my daily driver. I really don't have much to add to it. I mean, it's the distro that you install if you want something long-running, solid, stable. It's not the distro that you put on if you want every update to your desktop manager or that, those sort of applications. It has its uses, and as far as the part of the ecosystem that it fills, it does a great job at it.
Yeah, I agree.
I have some words, Nate.
Okay, what are your words?
Well, it's like everyone has said, it's a great distro for those who like, stable software, things like that. But for me,
you don't like stable.
No, I do, but as a daily guy who's running on, 2021 hardware that's been upgraded, blah, blah, blah. It's, I'm a rolling release guy. I like, the bleeding edge, the very high-end software. And for me, as much as I like Debian, I just don't see myself sticking to it, to be realistic.
That's fine.
I like to tinker. I like to make stuff work how I specifically like it to work. And for me, Debian, it's just not that, sure, I could enable like Nala and, the Packstaldy, etc. But, I don't like having to, I guess, add all these extra things just to make it a little bit more higher end than it is. And, again, it's just not where my loyalties lie, to be honest with you.
It's all good. Now, the one thing I didn't notice or locate or something while looking at the Debian site is they used to have like tons of different architectures. Have those been sort of trimmed away over time?
What do you mean?
No.
I know what you're saying.
It's just that the website's different and it only directs you now to the net install. And if you looked at my pinned message, I gave the link for the website where you can find like everything. So here it is. I'll posted it in chat. And there you can, it's like it's a directory, and you can look up all the live images and then select your architecture also.
I want to see if they still have they probably don't.
What are you chasing, Nate? Which one?
I want to see if they still built for the PA RISC system, the HP RISC from the 90s. I might have to get like an old version.
Never heard of that.
It's a dead architecture. I'm pretty sure. So
I'm pretty sure they dropped that.
Yeah, these live ISOs are kind of really out date or really stretched out by now because they're 12.1s. Debian's now on 12.2.
I don't think 12.2 has been released, but you probably got the updates just like the Ubuntu. You get like the point something first, and then later on they release the point number.
Well, it returns Debian 12.2 when I run it in the terminal to identify it.
You're ahead of the game, Dan. Ahead of the game.
Yeah, my links.
The kernel's been updated twice. It came out with 10. Now it's on 12.
My links were done for 12 only, and now they're 12.1. So I think that the links actually update. I think they're still the same link. They just, once they go to 12.1 and 2, that should update. So mine's only 12.1 at the moment. So maybe they haven't updated it yet.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
Who knows what's going on about this stuff?
All right. Well, anybody like any last minute things on Debian before we move on?
I think we're good, Nate.
I think Eric might have said something.
Just real quick. I mean, I was just glad to have the opportunity with a lot of this stuff. I just don't have a reason to go and look at Debian that often. And so I thought it was nice to just have the opportunity to go back and take a look at it. And,
I use the most of the reasons that it's there for and that we talk about. It just works. It's not always broken. I can get up in the morning and turn on my computer with my coffee and watch my YouTube and play some games or whatever. And it's there. It's there for me. It's not like I turn on the computer and
like State Farm.
It breaks. Or if you do updates and you'll reboot the computer and it's gone.
Like a good neighbor, Debian is there.
Exactly.
I think that's why that's a lot of reason why people just stay on it. Yeah.
I liked it for the historically for having an installation for everything. That's the thing I like about Debian, and for the most part that's still pretty true. But I see they've dropped the Motorola 68K and they don't have the PA risk anymore, and yeah, that's all right. HPPA. All right. Well, thank you everyone for a fun conversation on Debian. I think that I think Debian is a great distribution. I'm glad it's still around. I hope it stays around basically forever. There was a time I was a little worried about Debian. I had like a tumultuous period there a few years back, but I'm glad they've gotten through that. So I'm very happy. Very happy for that. All right. So next week we are doing a news flight. Wait, let me verify that in the calendar. Yes, it's a news flight night. So if you have any topics, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com, or you can tag them on the Telegram or Discord or wherever. We can do the Twix. Is that what we're calling it now? Twitter, X, Twix. Is that what we're calling it? I don't know. Or Mastodon. There's a Facebook page too if you want to check that out.
You have a matrix element page too.
We do.
Mastodonx.
Mastodox. So wherever you can find me or Eris or somebody else that's in the group for any ideas, any suggestions, that would be great. And that goes for any suggestions. So if there are discussions, distributions, applications, poll ideas, and whatnot, well, just also Linux Saloon calendar. You can go to keepinglit.com/Linux Saloon for that, or one of these days I'll get back to linuxsaloon.com, which is going to that Tux Digital page, and yeah, for all that. All right. Now, so before we close this out, I want to talk to Ulfnic about this very cool project that you've been working on for quite some time now, that you can let everybody do some really, really cool playing with a thing.
Yeah.
And I'll let you go ahead and kick that off.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I didn't quite install Debian from scratch, so this wasn't quite on topic, but this was a Debian project, and one of the places I hang out is cybertopia.xyz, which is out of the UAE, and Mr. Newbie, the founder, describes the server as running a bunch of open source services made by cool people, which is pretty accurate. So I'll just, guess I'll just link it. So where is YouTube? There you go. So you go, chat, link of YouTube. So yeah, if you check out the link, you'll see a lot of services. A lot of them you can use for free. Some of them you need to sign in, so you need to be part of the community. But basically, the spirit is in just sharing FOSS and helping each other be able to install cool stuff. So one of the members, Maharif, I don't know how to pronounce his name because there's a 3 in it, but I think I'm going to go with Maharif, owns a Debian server containing several GPUs. And we were talking about AI a lot in chat, so he decided to graciously give me access to it. And I've been setting up various LLMs for everybody in the community to use. And Debian, has just been a dream come true. No problem on NVIDIA drivers. I just needed to put non-free in the app sources list. That was the only sort of more hands-on thing that I needed to do, but it had all the packages I needed. And Mr. Newbie also set up the server as an FRP client. And I know Linux Saloon did a Tailscale episode. This is FRP is a completely FOSS version, top to bottom, no pun intended, of Tailscale. And it's and of course Tailscale is sort of an easy way to network all your services together if you don't know what that is. And I'll actually link that too. The learning curve is the worst. And I do have to give a big thank you to Mr. New, because he's the one who gave me the intro, and I got a great running start, and now I'm able to use it quite fluently. But and also, if anybody needs help, hop on Telegram on the Linux Saloon. On the Linux Saloon Telegram and ask me, and I'd be happy to give you my notes on it. But so he set up FRP on this server, and the way he set it up, it allows me to arbitrarily connect any port I like to any subdomain I like on the fly, which is handled by the parent server managing the HTTP certificates. And that's top to bottom FRP running the server and the client. So there's nothing in the cloud. There's no third-party service. 100% free and open source. So yeah, again, just the goal of Cybertopia is just to share the cool awesomeness of FOSS AI in this case. And I got basic authentication set up with in this case Stable Diffusion, because I think we went through a few different LLMs and different front-end interfaces, and the cool one everybody wants to use is Stable Diffusion. So that's kind of what I started focusing on. Mm-hmm. So I've got it to the point now where there's basic authentication. I've set up a bunch of keys. It allows me to revoke keys if somebody's abusing the service, because there is limited resources, because there's only so many GPUs, right? So yeah, basically with tremendous gratitude to Maarif, Mr. Newbie, and Cybertopia, I have some keys that I can hand out to the Linux Saloon audience. I'm going to give one out now. If I just need to get to the terms of use, so I'll give one out now to chat that everybody can use for the next 24 or 48 hours, I guess. We'll see how load goes. There will be a bit of a queue initially, but I need to set up multiple instances so it can handle more load with automatic failover. Yeah, so let me just
put in the Zoom chat. That
okay.
Yep.
That came in correctly?
Well, it did.
That's the link?
Yeah, but you're sending it to me directly, though, because I sent you a different message directly.
Okay. I don't understand Zoom.
It's okay.
Yeah. So that's if you join the Zoom call, you'll have access to that. Yep. Yeah, you can use that for the next 24 or 48 hours. And then on an as needed basis, just hop onto the Linux Saloon Telegram, just at Ulfnic if you want to use it for a longer period of time. And I'd be happy to give you like access to be able to play with it for as long as you like. The only terms of use is how you use it. It needs to be, you can only use it for family-friendly stuff, and that's for legal reasons because of the location of the server. So sadly, that does mean I need to moderate the images so I can revoke keys if I need to. I'd rather not, but you know, that's going to be an important thing for me to do. So I've set it up that I'm able to do that. But also I can help you install your own Stable Diffusion on Linux if you want to. So then you can use it any way you like. And Debian Debian and Ubuntu are the two OSs that are probably best. But I think Debian based just makes life really easy with NVIDIA. So again, you really just, you know, hop on Telegram at Ulfnic, and I'll give you my notes, and you know, I'll help you through it.
That's cool.
I was just gonna say, Ulfnic had inspired me to go out and look and see what was available in the community, and there are a couple projects that made getting set up, in my opinion, like exceedingly easy compared to if you read what it takes to sort of wire all the things together with all the Python and all the just like the stuff that's happening in the background. It's overwhelming. So these projects, for me at least, made it like super easy, and I was doing it locally without needing to rent a server, using an NVIDIA 2060, I guess, with 6 gigs of VRAM, which is like the most bare minimum I can imagine that you could use.
That's gotten pretty close, yeah.
I was getting pretty good results, and it wasn't taking a long time. It just really depended on like how you. I learned a lot about all of the various like inputs and parameters and things. I think it would be like better to run it on a server with, you know, lots of VRAM and stuff, because I think you could do a lot more. But the way I was able to play around with it was really amazing, and just the quality of the images. If like I really got, it took me a while to kind of get to grips with prompts, both positive and negative prompting, and sort of kind of figuring out like how that worked, and then models and like what, you know, how that worked, you know, and like, so there's a lot of sort of basic, you know, stuff to sort of, because like even if you go to use what he's going to hand out here, which is awesome, I really think that's just amazing to let people try this. I know until I tried it, I had zero idea of like how any of this worked, and like you know, you can read about it, but until you like get in there and start playing around with it, and I don't think a lot of people are going to have a system that they like. I was lucky enough that it worked on mine, but I don't know that everybody has, you know, an NVIDIA card with at least 6 gigs of VRAM and, you know, all this stuff. And I tried creating models using Amazon's, what's their service? I can't think of it right now, but like it's like their academic service or something. Anyway, I can't think of it right now, but I had a lot of problems using other people's stuff on those particular services, because again, it's not easy. It's complicated stuff. So
yeah, especially I mean, you know, setting it up, yeah, it's pretty complicated. A lot of the LLMs, I mean, if you don't use Conda and like Lockdown, the exact version of Python, it is just not going to work for you. I found Stable Diffusion be a bit more forgiving, but you know, I mean, if anybody asks for my notes, I mean, they're going to get some substantial notes. So there is quite a lot of steps to it, and then you have to deal with the GUI, which is a whole another adventure. The only reason I was able to learn the GUI was through listening to YouTubers like walk you through the different things that you could do. And on this service, I've added ControlNet to it, which is just like remarkable. Like it almost doubles the usefulness of it, in my opinion. But yeah, just getting to know the basics, and then getting to know ControlNet. It's just like,
yeah. I
there's
was
a
just
lot
gonna
to it.
say, ControlNet reminds me a lot of like the Jack patch panel, or there's something similar in like DaVinci Resolve, in the way that they have a same sort of UI where it is immensely powerful because of the way you can hook things together, but it's also mind-numbingly complicated at
Yeah, right.
first. Because you need to know the lingo. If you don't understand what that term is, then it might as well be in another language. Like, so yeah,
I mean, I guess. Well, it's lingo in a sense, but it's like the Stable Diffusion, of course, like has its own official lingo, you could say, and then you have Stable Diffusion Web UI, which is the project that I'm using, which has decided how to name like these different boxes and sliders, which are almost certainly not entirely the original name and are just sort of this weird mungy shorthand. So like yeah, it's like to the degree you're actually learning the official names, plus minus, I don't know, maybe 75% of the time if you're lucky. But yeah,
got it.
It's rough, man.
Yeah, yeah. But honestly, it was compelling enough to me to keep at it and to see what I could actually come up with, because at first everything I did looked like garbage. No matter what I put in, and that was before I was using negative prompts in a lot of cases. And so I was getting just like really weird dysmorphic, blob figures and weird faces, and just like the once you kind of figure out how the model itself is building the image, you kind of can start to conceptualize in some ways with the prompts where you're saying, all right, so what is sort of like the blanket layer thing I need to set? And you sort of set the scene, and then like, okay, what type of like influence, like artistically or graphically, do I want on this? What type of, is it a photograph? Is it a painting? And you just start to like build all that stuff out in your mind. And so that's the one side of it. And then the other side is all of the sort of tech, technical pieces of like how many, I don't know. I can't even remember half of it right now because it's been a couple weeks since I played with it. But like, yeah, and eventually, after sort of sticking with it and sort of playing through all of that, like I started to get really high quality images where it was just like, holy cow, like this is
Hey,
amazing.
well
Like,
done, man. Nice.
yeah, yeah. So I get like, I don't know. It's really powerful once you kind of get past that hurdle of understanding what a prompt is and how to. And there are lots of resources out there for like prompt makers and like best practices, and that helped me a lot to find some of that stuff. But yeah, really really cool stuff. And I don't I can't say I had like an overwhelming interest when I started, but the more I dug into it, the more interesting it became. The idea that, this LLM sort of, I don't know. There's no point in going too deep into it because I don't think anybody really understands what I'd be saying, like in terms of like the idea between a narrative prompt versus like breaking it down into keywords and like all of the stuff that I figured out as I went. Like, but yeah, it's its own thing. I could see someone totally getting into like being really good at making AI art because it is a skill, and maybe they'll just make it easier at some point where you don't have to be so, specific and detail oriented. You could just kind of say, like in a very sort of loose narrative way, this is what I'm looking for. And instead of getting so much uh, experimental or incorrect or undesired results, you sort of get a more polished result from the get-go. Maybe that's where services will take it. So
Have you been playing with ControlNet?
I did a little bit, and I'll tell you that that's where I kind of left off, and I sort of haven't gone back. But
Is a
yeah,
beefy panda.
I used automatic 1111, or however you say that, to start with. And that sort of got me through understanding the structure, the models, the kind of different, the different approaches and stuff like that. Then I found SD Next, which was just a little, it's in terms of like a package itself to run and to set up as a container and all that kind of stuff. That was easier. And I also think the UI is a little more straightforward in some ways, and maybe in some ways it isn't, but anyway, so yeah. And then I started playing with ControlNet, and yeah, it was sort of like, oh yeah, now that I understand this, I could see how this would be way more sort of get you straight to where you need to be instead of going through all the UI stuff. But yeah, it's daunting, no doubt.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, when you're talking about how it's hard to get the AI to do what you want, I think that's where the ControlNet steps in, because you can go into a 3D program and shape mannequins, right? Like literally just on the web. And you can get a picture of how you'd like these mannequins posed, and then you put that in ControlNet, and then your prompt gets mapped onto the mannequins.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the missing link. So yeah, when you get that under your belt, then you'll be in a better place.
And that could be, see, again, I feel like you and I are having a conversation that maybe a lot of people, until you've tried to get it to, so a lot of this is experimental in the sense that you think it's straightforward to just say like a family or a dad and his son flying a kite. I don't know. Something as simple as that. And you conceptualize it in your mind, and then you get a picture of something and it's not really what you expected. And then to be specific about like, well, I want them to be facing a certain direction, or I want the dad behind the son, or I want the, whatever it is you're trying to get it to do. That's when it gets really hard to get it to like, please just put that where I want it, and not have a third arm coming out or like whatever goofy thing it's trying to do. Yeah.
You got to fall back on that Photoshop, I'm afraid, or Krita or GIMP. Yeah.
Or in painting, that was a discovery I made as well, where it was kind of like, well, the face was weird, or the hand, or some part of this image was weird. So you can, do it image to image within painting and like just mask off that piece of it and then regenerate until you got that specific. Yeah. And I in-painted one image.
Sometimes how it goes. Okay.
Yeah. And I probably did that 6 times to one specific. I was trying to get it just right, and I did eventually, but I probably worked on it for 2 or 3 hours.
Good luck with your redoing hands. Jeez.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, and it's also fascinating to me to think that like if we're going to call it intelligence, whatever it is, it's a machine, right? It's machine learning, whatever, but it doesn't, it's not seeing things in like a holistic way. Like it's not looking at a hand and saying there are 5, 4 fingers and a thumb, and there's a particular shape to it. And, if it's holding something, then there's going to be a different shape to it. Like that's not how it conceptualizes things, right? There's no fact about the way a hand necessarily looks. And it can be so weird to get it to do what appears to be the most simple, straightforward thing, especially anatomy. Yeah. Hands, fingers, arms, like the way things bend, get weird. Like, yeah, there's just, people are tough, so anyway, it's fascinating. If you have any interest, I can't believe that he's letting us bang on his server. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's really one of the hardest things to do, is to get access to something without having to pay for it, because it's not cheap. So these compute systems need like 48 gig VRAM, hardware. Like these video cards that they've got in these systems are. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
Well, I was gonna say. So what I've done is next week is our news flight night, but the week after that we could do like recap on all this. So we can do we can touch on it next week a little bit. Do you want to do that, Ulfnic? Would that be possible? And then the week after that we can maybe have like a full dig into it. So maybe like kind of tease it a little bit next week, like what people are doing with it, and then have like a big how do you do about it.
And anything you guys want me to do, or in any way I can be helpful, I'm here for you. So you just name the time and I'll be there, and we'll do screen share, and people can ask questions if they get stuck on something or anything you need. Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Wow. Well, awesome. All right. Well, it is that time for last call. So, Eric, you have a podcast called Distro Hoppers Digest.
Today, this is our 8 of being on streams or podcasting or something. Yeah, it seems like Saturdays in particular, but yeah, Friday nights, first and third Fridays, I do Linux Slugcast from 9 to midnight. It's an open group, you know, a bunch of like hardcore admin type guys, sysadmin guys. So it's fun. They do a lot of like 3D printing, makerspace kind of stuff, like lots of fun stuff around that. If that is interesting to you, I think Nate, you would really enjoy it. Then yeah, I'm doing Distro Hoppers Digest, which we just released earlier this week, the latest episode where I talk about Rhino Linux, and
how it's full of just nothing but awesomeness, right?
I didn't have the greatest time in the world with it. I'm not going to get into it here, but the idea of making Ubuntu into something it's not, I think is like rife with all kinds of potential pitfalls, but what do I know, you know? So beyond that, I'm also been doing Mintcast, which is fun, and also Linux OTC, which is a newer podcast. So yeah, just been sort of
off the cuff.
Yeah, and it's off the cuff. Today it was off the chain, and you know, organic toxic compound, and like all kind of fun, you know, silliness.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
It's fun because Leo is on there too, and you know, he and I have a lot of fun, sort of making fun of each other,
being yourselves,
or whatever. Leo's a fun guy to hang
with.
Yeah,
he is.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so lots of stuff I've been doing just because I've been enjoying it.
That's awesome. So he was in the chat, but he didn't join us. But Steve's very own, he does most Sunday mornings, starting at like, I guess it's 8:15 now, maybe 8:30 Central, something like that. It's kind of a loose start time. But he has his Steve's very own live at 8:15 a.m. Central ish. So check that out on YouTube. Rick, you're not a Linux guru guy, but you say that, and I don't think that that's actually true anymore. So Rick, the Linux guru guy, have you been doing anything lately?
Yeah, I've got a video going on Pardis. I'm editing it now. Or I need to start editing it, basically. And yeah, Debian, I use that as my daily driver in case you didn't know.
Well, now I know.
But you probably, yeah, so now people know. But anyway, I really love it. I got i3 on it, so that's cool. I tried to install, and partly I got it working good, but I need to add some more stuff to it. I've installed Sway onto it too to get the Wayland
that's
effect.
the natural that's the natural one to go to after i3.
Right. So yeah, it's cool, but I still need to do some more from that before I can use it because I got to figure out how it doesn't have any examples of startups in there. I assume it's the same as i3, but at any rate, without getting weeds on that, yeah. So I've really enjoyed Debian, and I'm probably use it for a while, probably a year or two, before I switch over to something else. It's a daily driver. I usually stick with daily drivers for a while because once I find something I like, because you have so many pieces of puzzle you have to work for you, you know, that you hate to change it. So I was on MX Linux before, and as good as them, you know, I got labeled pointless. So I wondered, I wondered if I should be on it. So, but yeah, it had a point when I first saw install it because Debian 12 introduced like the updated kernel, and Bullseye had 10.5, I think, something like that, and no 5.10. Excuse me, I got a number switched, and so like I did when I was trying to go into the stream, and it had a I was trying to get my mic set, and I was working on the speaker, but I had them backwards. I was setting the speaker for the microphone for the speaker, so it wouldn't work. I couldn't figure out what was going on for a while anyway. Obviously, I got it straightened out, but Debian, I couldn't work, but they did backport some on the MX Linux to get a better AHA driver in there, and AHA version of it.
That's the newer kernel, right?
Yeah. So I was able to install on the framework back when Debian wouldn't work on the framework because the kernel wasn't up to date enough to do that. So
sweet. Well, very cool. So if you have any links that you want to share, feel free.
Yeah. Well, I got my channel, Not a Linux Guru Guy, which I feel like I really fit the bill after listening to what y'all just discussed. Most of that flew over my head, so but I figured, like I say, once you get into it, then you make sense. But yeah, so I have a video out on Partis hopefully next week. I was thinking maybe this week, but it's not. So too much stuff going on in my life.
Yeah, things get crazy. All right, well, excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Linux User Space. It's a great podcast. Now, Leo's in that one, Leo and Dan. And the last episode that just released is about Fedora Silverblue. And the next episode release is not going to be on a distro, but it will be on the history of CDE, or I think it means Common Desktop Environment. Yeah,
I think
common,
so, yeah.
Yeah, because NSCDE is not so common desktop environment. But anyway, so check that out. What I should say. So that'll be coming up, the release. I think not next week, but the week after. That'll be the next release that they have. So check that out. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We do every other week now, but you can check that out as well. Linux Out Loud. I wasn't on the last episode because of reasons. Also, website. I also have a website called cubiclenight.com. I do things there sometimes, and I've got lots of things that are almost done. Just haven't quite finished it because I'm not happy with it yet. But that's what happens. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved for making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas.
Take care all.
Adios.